Welcome to Biz Dev Live. This is Cameron Toth. This is the Biz D with the C. I am bringing you Jerry Penry today. I'm very excited about our interview. We're going to talk about small business. We're going to talk about some politics. We're going to talk about how you can have your voice heard in Washington. A lot of good stuff, a lot of interesting stuff. Also want to encourage you, I don't ask often, but I am raising money for soundbusiness.org, the nonprofit that is providing college and career preparation help for students at A. Philip Randolph Campus High School in Harlem, NYC. Really would like you to go to soundbusiness.org and make a donation there. I'll drop a link later to Give Lively. Really appreciate that. I don't ask often. Really appreciate it if you could drop $5 or more in that. Thank you for tuning in. Really appreciate you, whether you're tuning in live or tuning in later. Really appreciate you. We want to hear your comments, want to hear your feedback. Definitely drop in and say hello. With that, we're going to get into the Biz Dev theme, and I'll be right back to introduce my guest today, Jerry Penry.
Biz Dev Live, weekdays at 11 Eastern Time. Biz Dev Live, weekdays at 11 Eastern Time. Biz D with C, brought to you by Cameron T. Biz D with C, brought to you by Cameron T. This is business development, not even selling it. This is intelligent. If you watch it, I promise you benefit. Leadership and motivation, empathy and inspiration. Leadership and motivation, empathy and inspiration. Biz Dev Live, weekdays at 11 Eastern Time. Biz Dev Live, weekdays at 11 Eastern Time. Biz D with C, brought to you by Cameron T. Biz D with C, brought to you by Cameron T.
Today we have Jerry Penry. Jerry's career as an insurance and financial advisor for over 25 years has been rewarding, but there was more he wanted to accomplish. He recently found a calling with National Write Your Congressman to help business owners see there is an appropriate way to voice their opinions on critical issues facing our country, which prompted him to share the information and try to spread the word to as many people who also wanted to make a difference. Although the journey is far from over, and having been prompted and encouraged by family, friends, fellow entrepreneurs, and spiritual leaders, Jerry has finally launched into another chapter of inspiring others to aggressively pursue their passions, calling, and righteous endeavors. To be able to help others leave a legacy by design rather than by default, as a gifted dreamer and overcomer, as a successful entrepreneur, his ultimate goal is to light a fire of passionate pursuit, purpose in as many lives as possible, and for all those who are inspired to give and gain the most out of their time we are here on this planet. Side note, Jerry has 6 children, 3 sons who are Air Force officers, and 5 new grandchildren. Over the past many years, Jerry finds himself counseling people and colleagues, helping any way he can. He loves telling stories, jokes, and making people laugh. We're going to get into that today. Jerry, welcome to the show. Oh, you're on mute. Let me see if I can correct that. There we go. You should be good.
Very good. Well, thank you for the opportunity to be here. I've been looking forward to this just because you have quite a following, and your platform is dynamic and powerful, and I think it does a lot of good. So we're going to reach the people and make a difference.
Absolutely. So tell me a little bit about what you're doing right now, just so people understand that. And then I'd love to dive into your backstory.
Certainly. Well, right now, everybody, unless you've been asleep, is pretty well embroiled of everything going on in the political environment. You can't swing a dead cat and not hit somebody with a very strong opinion about politics. And although I do not consider myself a political activist, I do know there's not really any aspect of your life right now that is not impacted and affected by either regulation or legislation. You can't name any area. The air you breathe, the water you drink, can you own property? All those different things have an impact. So back to this great country we live in, just understand we the people still have the power. And the only way you lose is if you freely give up that power. So you just need to know what you have at your fingertips and how to use it in an appropriate manner to really have the impact you want to have. Once again, you don't have to be a political activist to have an impact and be a responsible American. So that's what I coach and teach and encourage people to do, because, you know, we have limited time for the things that we enjoy. And so if I can help alleviate that fear, frustration, anxiety, pull people back to some common sense solutions and show them how to engage in the right way, align their thinking and mindset and actions, and stand up for what they believe in with others just like themselves, we can actually make a huge impact. and have some common sense solutions land at the feet, because we have discovered that when responsible Americans actually get the facts and take action, common sense solutions do come and rise to the surface. So we haven't lost the battle.
And I love. We were just talking before we jumped on about the why be do. Can you explain the why be do?
Sure. And that came about after, I was already successful, somewhat to speak, in business. I mean, others looked at my agency and what I had built, and they're like, man, they were envious. And I was very unhappy. And I'm like, why should I be unhappy? So I started taking an inward look at myself, and I started really digging deeper and finding those mentors and coaches that were at that pivotal level, not in the industry I was in, but just in life in general. They had that balance that I was seeking. And I had the opportunity to be tutored and mentored by Dr. Lance Secretan. If you don't know who he is, look him up. He's one of the top 10 gurus in the world when it comes to inspirational leadership. Now, that's the key focus, is inspiration. A lot of us understand motivation. That's the carrot and the stick principle. And when as well as I do, when the carrot or stick is removed from the equation, then the motivation dies. It doesn't last. Inspiration, on the other hand, is that burning ember that if you ever get it lit, it doesn't die. So you look at the root word of inspiration, which is inspiro, okay, in Latin. That means to breathe in. That gives you life. It's the breath of life. So when you're inspired for your calling, cause, and purpose, you don't have to wake up to be motivated. You're already waking up with that plan of action, that purpose. And so you can be more impactful, and people respond more to inspiration than they do to motivation. One key thing he taught me is, we hear this all the time, specifically in business networks: accountability, accountability, accountability. I asked him why he never used that word, and he said it's the most negative word he can think of. He said, would you hold your own spouse accountable? Say, honey, today I'm going to hold you accountable. Not unless you want to back out of the room. He said, it's just a minor,
I can see the issue with that.
Yeah. So just a minor alignment in the thinking and communication level. Hold people capable. Say, dear or son, or whoever you're working with, you're having influence, I'm going to hold you capable. Right. Does that not just inspire you more to say, yes, I am capable?
It's a little bit of what do you call that when it's just words? But yes, absolutely.
Higher ground leadership is what it really amounts to. It's that higher ground, and it's true and authentic. So that's one of the things he always encouraged me to do, because I was around what I called so many pathetic pretenders. They looked like, smelt like, talked like they were successful. Yet if you were to peel the onion, they were some of the most unhappy people. Their relationships were broken. They really didn't have the confidence that they truly exuded. They weren't really getting out of life that sense of satisfaction. Yeah. And so you see them struggle with whether it's alcohol or drugs or whatever they look for outwardly. And so, the all-encompass aspect of the holistic approach, we're three people. We're the spiritual side, the physical side, the psychological. I want that balance. And I discovered that unless you're true and genuine and authentic and honest in your communication, then you're never really going to reach that level of satisfaction. So that's what Dr. Lance has taught me is, first of all, as you start on this journey, we all understand this, begin with the end in mind. Well, you need to start out right. You got to be honest with yourself first, and then you can be honest with others and transparent. But so much of what we're taught in the world of sales, which I was considered a great salesperson, it's really about communication. It's really about understanding. And the best part of communication is listening. Now, we all know that whoever's asking the questions is in control of the interview. But if you ask the right questions, you'll get the right answer.
Oh yeah,
and
we got the wag the tail on the dog. Folks that you can ask a question, but they'll take it wherever they want to go. Right.
Right. So I would rather communicate instead of manipulate.
Yeah.
And so that's why I wasn't focused on the sale. I was focused on the process of understanding, engaging, and then creating a raving fan in the relationship. And the sale happened by natural course.
Well, talk to me because I do want to go to your history, but I wanted to get this why be do because I love that.
Sure. So part of his book and what he taught me in a face-to-face course was it's called What is your why be do? Why are you here? How are you going to be while you're here? What are you going to do with that length of time that you're here? And so one of the things I did in the Lilly class, which they use his book in some of the course, is you give your own eulogy to the class. Now, fundamentally, that's it's a sobering process because once you realize that you're going to leave a legacy either by design or by default, and I'm kind of by design guy, and
Yeah, absolutely.
and I had that. Well, I think I told you earlier on, and we'll get into that here in a minute. That I died on the highway in a motorcycle accident. The only reason I know that to be true is because when I set up to get off the highway and the motorcycle off me, I heard somebody say, "Oh my God, he is alive." Don't know how long I laid there. I was just there long enough they thought I was dead. But anyway, so when you have something like that take place, you realize our time here really is precious, and
Yeah, absolutely.
and don't waste it in silly arguments and petty disputes and just trying to be right.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's best to that. If I can create the scenario and environment that you win and I win and everybody else wins, how much better are we? That's an environment that a lot of things can prosper. And so when all you're hearing is anger, resentment, and hate, nothing can grow in that environment. Nothing good can come from it.
Well, let me say one thing to that because I think that's really, really important. And Luann says hi, by the way.
Hey, Luann, good to see you.
I find myself, because I am definitely a political activist at times, and so there will be things that are said, and I find myself trying to have that nuanced piece of discussion where I am not, and then I'm trying to have some self-honesty with myself right now. It's not about me being right, but just trying to set the record straight. Just saying, hey, what you're saying just doesn't gel with reality, and I just want to kind of correct the record.
Sure. Well, but there's your problem because it's perception.
Are entrenched, right?
Yeah, sure.
Entrenched.
When it's perception, 1 + 1 can equal 2, but for the really creative person, 1 + 1 is 11. And so there's that perception, but at the end of the day, the truth seems to always rise to the surface.
Well, I think that's where people have, I definitely have the view that we are in the best time ever, period, ever, period, ever, period. The access to information,
yes,
the ability to feed yourself, clothe yourself, inform yourself,
be whatever it is you want to be. Yeah. And that's the tragedy, Cameron. How many people use this incredible device, which, the power of this device right here, can launch a space shuttle, and it's full of information. Anything you want to know is at your fingertips. Yet people use it for entertainment. They use the internet for entertainment instead of for knowledge. So it's that old good and bad scenario. It can be used, it's a two-edged sword. Right. And so it all comes out with the why be do. What is your purpose? What is your calling? I don't waste time on social media for entertainment, although there's things that do amuse me. I mean, you can't help but be amused by some of the idiocy that you see.
You got to take joy. Joy is something that we don't want to limit anybody from.
Absolutely. But I leverage my connections on LinkedIn to find people of like mind that are looking for a solution. Because once again, I want you to be able to spend as much time as possible pursuing your passion, your righteous endeavor, spending time on your personal relationships so they can be the best they can be, so they can be an example to other people. I mean, my wife and I, we've been together 17 years. We've got the 6 kids. We both had starter spouses. We learned what we didn't want in life. But moving forward, we've got a relationship that people envy. Okay.
I love that, starter spouse.
Yeah. Feel free to use that. It's kind of like your first car. You don't always appreciate it. You tear the hell out of it, and it'll leave you stranded on the side of the road because you didn't take care of it. So no, it's sometimes you have to figure out what you don't want in life before you figure out what you do in life. But if you really value those things that are core to what makes you a better person yourself. I mean, I pour so much time and energy and focus into these relationships. Man, the rewards I can't count. I'm not one to keep score anyway, but I turned 58 on Thursday last week. And to get a personal call, by the way. Well, thank you. And to get that personal call from, the major and 2 captains, first of all, that took time out of their day to say, hey, let's reminisce. Because it's those memories, those great times when they were young, and now they're experiencing what I miss so much is when they were little.
For anybody that missed that, his 3 sons are Air Force officers, so
right? And they're dynamic. They're making a positive impact. They're godly men. They're great leaders. They inspire others to do great work, and they hold people capable. They understand that higher ground leadership. Although they hear the words accountable, they know what it means to help people be a better person. And that's what it comes down to. And, if we all just came out every day with our best foot forward, trying to seek to do something positive, how much better would it be?
Oh my goodness, yeah. So talk to us about your history. I love your small business background. I want to. I know you mentioned the accident.
Right.
I don't know where you want to start, but bring us back.
Well, it's a culmination, but it actually started early in life. I was actually from Boy Scouts. I felt like I was on a trajectory, and so many things happened in my life that confirmed I wanted to be an astronaut. Actually, when I was 6 years old, the Apollo missions, the moon, the first man on the moon, I literally was walking through a park, just randomly was picked out of that park by a reporter. And I'm 6 years of age, and they put me on the front page the next day of the newspaper next to the guy on the moon landing, just because of my dialogue as a 6-year-old with this reporter. They said, "So how fast, Jerry, do you think
where'd you grow up, by the way? Where was this at?
Oklahoma City. It was in Oklahoma City. Okay. Actually, Moore, Oklahoma. I'm a moron from Moore. It's the Tornado Alley. But anyway, I was at this park, and they asked me, "Well, how fast do you think the Apollo orbiter's traveling at right now?" And I said, "Well, at least 85 miles an hour. Or better." Here I am, a 6-year-old, so my perspective. But what was funny is that made the front page, and you can see there's some NASA stuff here behind me, But moving forward, all the way from Boy Scouts into Eagle Scout and all that, I was pursued by the Air Force, whether through my ability to play percussion or whatever. I wanted to go fly F-16, just like everybody else my age at the time. And unfortunately, between my junior and senior year, I got hit by a semi-trailer truck. I was on a motorcycle. I was nothing but a speed bump, and I got entangled up in it inside the
you were what my mother lovingly calls a body part donor riding around.
Could have been a donor. Yeah, could have been the donor. Yeah. Well, he had other plans. I was given a choice. He had other plans for him. But two things I lost in that camera. One was the ability to go fly the F-16. That was a given. I had to call my Air Force liaison officer up and say, "Hey, I need to let you know I was involved in a motorcycle accident, and it tore my foot off." He just hung the phone up. He didn't even ask, "How you doing? What's the prognosis?" Because he didn't have time. He had a list of people to start making phone calls to. And so, but the other thing I lost, and you'll love this, was fear. All fear left me, because when you live through that, you realize there's really nothing to fear other than what you make up in your own head. I mean, you pretty well know who you are, what you're about, and what, if you're saved, there's a reason you're saved. So I will say this, the rehab was much more painful than the event. I can
imagine a little bit of that. Yeah.
Yeah. But so I was actually homebound for the first semester of school, my senior year. So they'd have to bring my homework to me. And that took all of 45 minutes to an hour to do a week's worth of homework, even though it was in honors classes. That shows you the curriculum. But anyway, this was before cell phones. This was before cable television. This was before a lot of amenities that we have available. But what I did have available to me was the Encyclopedia Britannica and the Annals of American History. And going through the history of our country, and you read it in that fine detail, and not just what took place, but why it took place and how impactful it was, I grew a strong love, even a stronger love of this country. And so it's funny how.
And let me just interject there, because I think that's a good point and sort of ties into what we'll be talking about and letting people's voices be heard. I think it's really key for folks that don't have a good understanding, particularly of American history, but a world history, I think is really important as well, because a lot of the things that are happening, both in the political spectrum, both from a word for word and movement situation, are things that have transpired before, and people follow the same kind of patterns. It's very interesting with our political leaders, whatever side of the line that you're on, there has been somebody that has used that strategy in the past. And when you go in and you look at that history, you can sort of say, "Oh, well, this is the way to battle that, because this is what's been done before and it worked." Right.
You're so right. Human nature is human nature. And so what we're seeing right now is the old tactic of divide and conquer. Yeah. So if you'll think about it, if they can keep us fighting amongst ourselves, the elite ruling class can then get away with who knows what, because we're not paying attention to what they're doing. And so in summation, I pretty well say, like it or not, we have the very government right now we deserve, because not enough of us have been using our influence to hold them accountable.
And amen to that. Amen to that. Let me say that, because I think that all of us would be better for it if we were all a little bit more involved in our local politics, our local elections, and then that feeds up to the national, right?
Absolutely, absolutely, and that's what we show is how to be engaged in the appropriate way, and that's not marching in the streets, as I say.
I got us off track. So we were talking about you.
No,
so you're at home, senior year,
right?
working on homework, digging into the history books.
Right. And so what I learned really fast was, as I came out, I wasn't supposed to walk again without some device, whether it be a walker or a polio brace and a cane. And I threw that away in about 90 days. And I intentionally went out and I thought, well, in rehabilitation, to learn to walk again, I learned to play racquetball. I chose to learn to play racquetball. So I went to the local Y and I found guys that were playing in Class A and B tournaments and winning those tournaments. And that's who I sought out as my teachers. And I didn't realize the profound lesson that was teaching me about life is seeking out expert advice from those that have already done it. So what I did learn is it sure didn't take me very long to become a pretty good racquetball player. Even today, my sons will tell you I've got a wicked serve that, I'll be standing in the middle of the court and you'll be running around the court. So I don't work up much of the sweat like I used to. But anyway, that's the life lesson there. Okay. And so throughout history, I look back at how many times I had someone pour into my life. Simple, basic life lessons. Matter of fact, before that took place, there was a gentleman, a husband and wife that were retired, that lived on a lake. And I got to spend a summer with him. They were good friends of my parents. And so what 15-year-old boy wouldn't want to spend the summer at the lake, right? And to be able to go down and swim off the dock every day, I had to put in the hard day's work because he was building an addition on and a separate garage onto his property. That man was an engineer's engineer. He came through World War II. He actually oversaw maintenance on aircraft over in England on the airfield. And although he wasn't a formal engineer per se, there wasn't anything he couldn't invent to do the job. And he taught me so much about critical thinking and understanding that there's always a solution. You may have to think about it. You may have to come up with it. You may have to devise it. But just because something's been done this way for 40 years doesn't mean it has to be done the same way wrong for the next 40 years. And so what he taught me was just invaluable in that lesson. He nicknamed me, and he said he got this from World War II. He nicknamed me Archibald. And he bought me a hat that said Archibald. It was one of the stupidest looking hats you could ever come up with. But the humor behind that was the name Archibald as well. But he said, you earn that title when you become a competent protege working with the master engineer. And that was something that he brought with him. But I wore that in his presence, I wore that hat with honor.
Yeah, and for folks, because I love the business side of that, where it's like there's not many people where you work with good managers that are like, listen, if you find a better way, we're going to be open to it. A lot of times people are very controlling and don't really allow for creativity in accounting, in work, in whatever, right? And it's something that it is, if you have it, if you see it, know that you're lucky for it, right? That's
sure.
A big deal.
Absolutely. And that's what kind of led me. Actually, I was my first career coming out of school, going into college, coming out was industrial engineering at Tinker Air Force Base. And matter of fact, I have it right here behind me. I was part of what was called the Salary Savers Club. Every year I worked out there. And what that is if I saved them more in salary than they paid me, I got the special coffee cup and a certificate suitable for framing. And this little card that granted me front of the line. I gotta say,
because we spoke before, and I love this aspect of your story because I think it speaks to a lot of the dysfunction in government.
Yes. Yeah, I saved them more in salary than they paid me. But my last suggestion that they adopted, I saved them $350 million, and for that I got I got a special parking spot with my name on it.
Yeah, let me say that number again. You saved them $350 million.
Yes, and I was named the Civil Servant of the Year, and I was going to get to go shake hands with President Reagan. And that was the week that the space shuttle blew up, so everything changed. So instead, the Secretary of the Air Force came down to shake my hand and give me my certificate suitable for framing, and my coffee cup and my ball cap that said Top Gun. So I was a Top Gun. And so anyway, nothing wrong with that, but it just, you roll back and how many of us have chased trinkets, trips, plaques in pursuit to make someone else wealthy. And we give up time with our families. We may even lean towards one moral aspect or another to have situational ethics come into play, and all for the dream of getting to put our name at the top or our name on the door. And I realize there really isn't long-term value in that, especially when you reach, the age you hope to reach, and reflect back on the time you spent pursuing those.
Right.
So having a great why behind your what is what I've really learned. So regardless of your belief system, regardless of your activity and your pursuits, one of the questions I normally ask is, if I'm engaged with someone, and I've asked you this, Cameron, why is it you're doing what you're doing, and how's that working out for you?
Right. And I'll answer that just real quickly for folks so that I'm not skipping over it. So, my mission, and I share this with you, is education, and I really enjoy it, and I'm excited about it. And it can be a little bit challenging sometimes because the money in exchange for education isn't always great, but I, at the end of the day, feel really good about what I'm doing. And that's at the end than necessarily some of the other things that I could have. Sure.
And that's what I call a fulfilling life, is know that you're serving your purpose, and you're following your calling, and it's part of the why be do. Call it what you want to call it. That's just what Lance had taught me to call it. But it is a powerful way to keep that compass pointed in the right direction.
Absolutely.
Because we're all on a journey.
Keep
go ahead
on with your story, because I want to get into Hawaii.
Oh yeah. So did pretty well. So what happened there is when I was promoted, I went up to a section and I looked around the room, the cubicle rats, very high thinkers, and there was at least 30 other engineers up there that I needed to dive for me to be able to move up. I could basically look to my left, my right, and see the guys that had been there 20, 25 years longer, and I knew exactly what my life was going to be. The vacations I'd take, the house I'd live in, the schools my kids would go to. And it's not that I was too good for that. That would be fine for a lot of people. I just felt like I could do better. And so I was having a conversation with my insurance agent at the time. I felt like I started to have kids. I needed more life insurance. And I'm the guy that asked him about it. He fell out of his chair, because most life agents are looking for somebody like me to talk to. And he's like, man, he said, tell me about it. And he found out my story. He's like, you work awful hard for what you're making. He said, you need to maybe consider doing what I do, because you have a belief in it. And one thing led to another. I met his district manager, and I started working part-time to see if it was a good fit. And I absolutely loved the working with people, finding a solution. You were working in
the Air Force, and then you picked up insurance as a side gig.
Yes. And then I ended up putting out the candle at that other end, because I was prudent about it. I didn't just quit abruptly.
Yep.
And start chasing it, because I had a pretty cherished position where I was at.
Yeah, for young people in particular who might be watching, it's never a good idea to burn your fridge.
Absolutely.
If you're going to quit responsibly.
Yeah, because where I was at, you
never know.
If you have your own parking spot, that's pretty astounding. But to have your own bicycle, that's status. Because that building I was working in was a mile long, and so I had the freedom to come and go around that whole facility. And it's nice to have a tricycle or a bicycle.
They provided you your own.
Absolutely, had my own bicycle that was mine. Had my name on it. It's so funny what people find valuable, but it is, because we called it the Tinkerfield Shuffle. And do you remember the old skit with Carol Burnett? Her boss, it was Mrs. Wiggins, whatever the boss's name was, how he would shuffle around.
You're working my I did watch Carol Burnett. You are working my memory, though. I don't know if I
okay. Well, anyways, Tim Conway's character, and I can't remember the boss's name, but when he would get up and walk, he would shuffle. His feet would it looks like he's really moving, but he's only going micro inches at a time. We called that the Tinkerfield Shuffle. You would see people walking around that, civil servants making good money doing the Tinkerfield Shuffle. But I tell you what, come 3:30, you better not be between them and the parking lot, because it's like they put their track shoes on and they're in a full out sprint. And it's amazing. You're thinking they're barely going to make it to the end of the day until that bell rang. and it's like first day of summer in grade school. It's comical,
Right.
comical if you're a people watcher. So anyway, the long and short is I chose to pursue another endeavor. It helped feed my children and raise them, get them where they needed to be, and got them successfully launched. And I was reaching a level of, some would call it burnout. I know other guys that have their so-called midlife crises and all that. That's all triggered and stemmed by the reflection in their life if they really didn't end up where they thought they were going to be.
Right.
And they have too many regrets. And so they try to fix it by substituting something else that doesn't really make them happy. That's what I consider it to be. Anyway, the long and the short of it is I went through that Leadership in Life Institute, and by giving my own, one of the exercises, you give your own eulogy in front of the class. And I realized I'm going to be leaving a legacy, and I wanted to be happy about it. So the very thing that I went to make myself a better financial planner, financial guru, insurance agent, whatever, pretty much convinced me I didn't like the industry I was in anymore. It's just because there was too many broken promises, half truths, and they continued to move the cheese.
Yeah.
And I didn't have to stay there. So I sold out. It took me a couple of years to create the exit strategy and move to Hawaii.
That's awesome. And so what was the reasoning behind moving to Hawaii?
Well, my wife and I were at Sturgis a lot, and if you've ever been, you can go once, and it's the same every year. But we were sitting there, and I got to thinking and said, hey, there's a lot of guys running around here that their bikes broke down, or they forgot, they came in a pickup truck and they'd like to rent a bike. I'm like, we could buy a motorhome and a few extra Harleys to haul around, and I'll rent them out by the day, and we could hit every bike event. And she looked at me and she said, hell no. So I swung for the fence and swung and missed. And I said, well, fine. I'm one of these. Don't criticize unless you have a solution. So I looked at her and says, okay, dear, anywhere in the world you want to live, where would it be? And she didn't even hesitate. She said, Kauai, Hawaii.
Okay.
Now the Mexicans stand off. So the first one speaks loses, and I lost. And so I said, fine, pull the trigger. Let's make it happen. That's what we did. And then, awesome. Yeah. But in the scheme of things, we got that out of our system. We were young enough to enjoy it. But if you're not from Hawaii, they don't ever really truly accept you. But as the course of life happens, things move on. My father became ill, and we came back.
Talk to I don't want me to.
No.
Because I want to, definitely get into that. But just talk to a little bit about the actual small business, what you did there.
Oh, sure.
In terms of just kind of letting people know, kind of what you've done business.
Yeah, actually, yeah. So I'm one of these, grass doesn't grow under my feet, and we saw an opportunity. We actually went there to open up a Aloha franchise. And I had gotten that idea on a trip to Cozumel. I was their stick on how they sold their sheets and towel sets, basically in a little boutique shop, and they have it delivered on your doorstep. It would look pretty lucrative. So we investigated having that franchise. We qualified to do it. But as we investigated it further about getting a lease on the island where we would locate it down at either Honolulu Bay or Niwili Bay or something like that, we realized that there's a cruise, and a lot of their business comes from cruise lines. So they give a coupon on cruise lines as people disembark, and they drive business to your door. Well, you have to give a kickback to the cruise lines, number one. But the way they do their triple net leases in Hawaii, you're pretty much ended up working for the landlord by the time it's all said and done. But the thing that really got me is I realized in that cruise that went around the islands, there was a Aloha store on every port of call, and Kauai was the last port of call. People have already seen it if they're going to come there. And then most likely they've already spent their wad. So I'm thinking this is not a good use of our resources. So we kind of held back. And what we did notice,
good market research before you got all the way in, right? Yeah,
right. Because it was going to be about $150,000 investment just to get the doors open.
Were you there's no insurance during this time?
No. We were just over there playing a little bit of golf, enjoying the time. But what I did do to try to cover some of the golf is I bought a used mail truck, a box truck. And I don't even think it had 13,000 miles on it. It was about 15 years old, but they only drove it 1 mile every day from the airport to the post office. But what I did is I put an ad in Craigslist there was nobody on the island that could pick up a sofa from Pier 1 or Sears or Costco and deliver it to the condos when people would come over and remodel their condominiums for their 10-day vacation. And so I put an ad out there thinking, well, I just, charge for delivery, create a little delivery service. Well, before it was said and done, I had 3 trucks, 7 employees, and we were working on a complete remodel at a resort.
I love that.
And yeah, so it grew, and then I ended up selling that when we came back, just because.
And it all started from you picking up this one little box truck.
And realized that there's a niche there. There was a niche market because we were actually moving people from apartments and condos that lived there that would, be moving up or something like that. We actually did full house moves because of how we operated. I brought my engineering skills, my Tetric skills, and we were good to the people, and I had very loyal and faithful employees, and we could actually get it done without breaking something. And it was a very honest pricing. And the word of mouth was over the top. I mean, everybody loved us. We got it done efficiently and effectively. And, and I taught them a thing or two. And actually the guys that were working for me are the ones that bought the business.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. And they had never thought outside the box that way, because there's the big moving companies over there, but we're talking, tens of thousands of dollars to move you.
Right.
And ours was a flat rate, depends on how many people we had on board. But it was, for 2 guys in a truck, basically, was $75 an hour.
Well, and I love that. And I love that piece because, in terms of talking biz dev, and I find myself stuck in it sometimes, just getting it and launching it and putting it out there. And you can really make something happen and then put some smarts behind it. You can grow it. It's just,
right. Well, our branding was good. It was called Coastal Delivery Services. And like I said, it turned out we ended up doing all of the complete remodel and rehab, FF&E, at Kaloa Landing. And if you want a fabulous trip, 10 days on Kauai, go to Kaloa Landing. Matter of fact, look it up online. You'll see the pictures, and that's all our work of our people. We're talking all the way up to the pictures on the walls, to the flowers in the vases. We did all install the microwaves, stoves, ovens, dishwashers, and such.
That's amazing. Kaloa Landing?
Yes.
I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that right.
It's Koloa, Kaloa Landing.
All right.
And,
so talk to us about, so you sold the business and why. So why did you guys decide to sell and move?
Well, my father passed. We wanted to come back, be a little closer to home, and my children started having those grandbabies, and it's a little bit just too far for them to visit. So we needed to be closer.
Where did you move back to?
We're in Texas.
Yep.
And so my sons were the ones kind of called me out. They said, "Pops, what are you doing retired?" First of all. And secondly, you raised us under the premise of if you have the ability, then you have the responsibility. And so you're going to walk the walk or talk the talk. So this kind of found me. I was looking for how to use my skill set. I was made offer after offer to get back in the insurance world, and I didn't even renew my license, didn't want to. I'd had enough of that. I wanted to do something more. And it's not that there's anything wrong with it. It's just not for me anymore. And so I didn't realize I was this close to the corporate office of National Write Your Congressman, but when I sought them out, I called and I didn't realize they had patched me through to the vice president. And I said, I introduced myself and I said, I've seen the work you guys are doing and I want to get involved. And he asked me, so, well, Jerry, what's your definition of involved? And I'm like, well, what can I do? He's like, well, where do you live? So we're playing cat and mouse. Come to find out, I'm spitting distance of corporate, and where I live, there's been nobody represented for quite some time. So it was just a match made in heaven. And so apparently I'm the guy. And I absolutely love what I do because I engage with business owners that are frustrated or just totally unaware. They had this ability and opportunity, and I get them engaged. And that's what I do. It's very low key. It's one of those that's more of an awareness campaign. It's not a sales pitch. Doesn't have to be. When people connect the dots, they're like, get out of my way, let me get involved. And the sense of satisfaction they have as a responsible American now, you can't put a price on.
So what are ways that folks that just want to get involved with the political process, what are ways that people can get involved with? Obviously, I'm assuming vote would be.
Well, that's kind of the basic, and it does amaze me we have such a low turnout, but that people have been convinced that the system is rigged or that it doesn't matter. That's many times that's part of what I deal with on a daily basis. And the two dragons that I actually battle is ignorance and apathy. Ignorance I can fix with the facts and some truth and knowledge. The apathy part is really difficult because once somebody just thinks that, why bother? I almost want to say, just go to the hardware store and buy a shovel, man. You're done. You're just taking up space. And that's just because I'm a firm believer that if you're not part of the solution, then by default you're part of the problem.
Yeah, no, and it's a tough thing because so many people are disillusioned. They have the wrong information.
Right.
They let apathy. Because I think there's certain folks that feel apathy. I don't maybe understand what I'm trying to get at here. I think there's folks that are apathetic because they are just apathetic, like they're just going to be apathetic, right? But there are other folks that have let the negative information or people persuade them to be apathetic. Oh, your vote doesn't count, doesn't matter. You're in a blue state, you're in a red state. Your vote isn't going to make a big difference. And I think that people forget, the most impact on their lives is at the local level. And when you get down to local level, man, an individual vote can be the difference between this person winning or losing. And it really does make a big difference, but it's difficult because you have to seek the information out. It's not on Fox News. It's not on CNN. Right. It's something that you have to go and read something, pick up a local paper, go dig for a website that you haven't heard of before that has some local, political information, or go look at what's going on with your town board. These are not things that are going to find you necessarily. You have to go out and find it.
Right. And just think about it. Those that tend to be the most radical are the ones that don't mind being the activist because they know they can be loud. They can either shout down and intimidate or humiliate people into silence. And doesn't mean they're right. It doesn't mean they're true, and they don't have your best interest. They just are the loudest. And I
think that's very, very real, and something that people need to go into the process, understanding that if you go and you attend your first town hall meeting, there is going to be that very vocal person, but they don't necessarily speak for everyone, right?
That's correct. And they will dominate the microphone if you let them. So I just treat those people like that 8-year-old that's throwing a fit in the grocery store aisle. Walk off, let them throw their fit with no audience, But every now and then, though, if they continue on, you may need to speak their language, and you may need to get them cornered and outnumber them in the right way. But typically that you don't have to go there. But, you hit on something that's really powerful. So, Cameron, you would agree that there's only one thing worse than being uninformed, and that's being misinformed. And if you're only dealing with half the truth, then you're misinformed. And, it's not highly complicated. You don't have to have a PhD to understand really what's going on. You trust your gut. You've got that instinct there, keeping it simple, that fire's hot, water's wet, liars will lie because that's what they do. And scorpions will sting you because it's in their nature. So just, you don't have to be pessimistic, but you can be pragmatic about it and understand,
Yeah, it's really interesting because I find there's a lot of rhetoric out there, and people believe what they believe. And you can say, well, this person is lying, and they're saying, well, and their response isn't that this person isn't lying, but that the other person on the other side is lying. And you're sitting there like trying to defend something. And I understand, like, all right, I'm not going to play that game anymore. Like,
right.
Come with me with some real information. And I think, something that's sort of lost, and this is where I sort of get deep into like college and career education, but also, what is our education system doing? But a simple understanding of debate, right? And understanding scarecrow arguments and, false, I'm losing all my terminology here, but, basically, all of these different argument chains that, are just basically tools that people use to manipulate, but aren't actual, real, factual.
And drive the narrative of their choice. You're right. And so learning to make an appropriate appeal is one of the best tools people could ever use. And you can learn that. Just look it up on the internet, how to make an appropriate appeal. Okay. And there's some guidance there. There's always the correct way to bake a cake. There's a correct way to do everything to get the desired outcome.
Right.
And you don't have to reinvent the wheel. So, but there's no substitute for honesty and integrity. But yeah, sometimes people will use that against you, and they consider if you're too transparent as a weakness.
Right.
But
It's like, come on.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, like I said, it comes down to courage. And that's what I really try to do, if anything, is to encourage people to make that stand, but just know why you're standing for what you're standing up for. Because we all have those things that we would definitely fight to the end to protect. That would be your child's life, your spouse's life. And that's what I got to get people to understand is, fundamentally, whether it's your faith, your family, your finances, or your fundamental freedoms, they're all under attack. And it's your responsibility, because if you don't care enough to fight for them and protect them, then you may not deserve to get to keep them.
Sure. When you say under attack, how do you kind of because that's a big, that's all.
Yeah, that's a big term. So let's narrow it down.
It's a fear argument, right? And I think that one of the things that I've noticed over and over again, and I think it's a turnoff, and obviously it's effective, which is why politicians in particular use it. But that appeal to fear, and I also see it in sales, right? So for businesses, right, you're selling insurance, your part of the sales piece is fear, right? So we're going to make you fear your death and what happens if you die. And I definitely am turned off a little bit by those. Not that I don't understand and realize that.
Right.
Yes, there's a possibility of me dying this moment when I step out into the street, cross the road, or any other moment during the day. But it's not the most positive outlook on life. And so I tend to stay away from it.
Sure, I understand. So to boil that down, okay, how are they under attack? Well, there are those that would want to take our freedoms. Then they may be those, they're not really seem to be a direct threat. And I think that's what it is. It's the allure of despotism, which is merely letting other people make all those hard decisions for you, and where you don't have to make those hard decisions. But we could debate a lot, but the facts are we have still the most free society out there, and that you don't see people leaving this country to go to those other countries they want to emulate.
Yeah, it's always interesting because whenever a president is, being elected, there you got folks on both sides of the aisle. Well, if this happens, I'm leaving the country, but they never seem to do it.
They never seem to leave, do they?
And I keep on saying, well, just go then.
Well, and once again, it amazes me the loudest and the most vocal. Really, if you really peel that onion a little bit, you realize why they're saying what they're saying, and they really don't have the substance to back up what they're saying. They just have the platform, so they're using it to the best of their ability. But just look at it though. Why do certain politicians, not even just politicians, just leaders in industry, they like to be able to operate in secrecy and make their decisions and not sometimes be held accountable. They like to insulate themselves. But I see, and this is my 2 cents worth, I see that they keep us fighting amongst ourselves, us peasants. And I don't care, if you're not making $100 million a year, you're not in that elite class, right?
Agreed.
And
I think that's sort of a sidebar, but I think there is especially among poor white folks in particular, but this is, I think, a common thing where you have, there's some belief that we're all going to be rich, that we're all going to be of the 1% class. And so any tax or any regulation that is coming across that is for the good, for social safety net, for any kind of thing, if there's any kind of thing that would affect the billionaire class, we don't want that because we're going to be that one day. And it's crazy to me. It's just absolutely bonkers.
And that's it in a nutshell. But really, the clear dividing line, it's not left versus right. It's the haves versus the have-nots.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that to a very large degree. Yeah.
But I look at it this way. I mean, how much does one person really need? Okay, because I've met some people that are free to go and come. They live in a tiny house or motorhome, and they're on a very limited income, but they are some of the happiest people you'd ever meet.
We know that, right? We know money does not equate
Right.
happiness. Although I do want to say, and breaking that down, because sometimes that is sort of used against folks as well.
Yeah.
If you are not able to subsist, if you are not able to pay your rent, and you live in a small place and pay for food, you're not, it's not like you're dying exquisite. And I love how, in the news, like the moment somebody that's poor pays for something that, they go to a Whole Foods supermarket and pay for a meal where, this is a normal thing that most people do every day. And somehow, the poor are equated with a demon if they actually do something nice for themselves. How dare they?
Yeah.
There was a big argument now, when they were doing the whole $600 add-on to the checks and going back and forth. Well, people are going to get paid more now than they were getting paid when they were working a job. And it kills me because so many people in this country have it good. I definitely count myself among those folks. I own my own business. We have a nice place to live. We're not desperate for that next meal. But there are so many people that are, and it's sort of that conversation around if somehow we give something to somebody else that's taking something away from me or taking away from you, and it drives me crazy because that kind of thinking, that zero sum game where if Jerry, if you win something, I'm losing.
No, you can create the win-win, but here's a good example though, and I saw this in a microcosm in Hawaii. So the very best pieces of property, of course, oceanfront, best views and such, the native Hawaiian can't afford to live there. Your native Hawaiians have got to live 3 and 4 families to a lot. What would be considered a typical building lot in middle America, which is 60 by 120 feet. Okay. They will stack 4 houses 2 stories tall on with multiple families. So there's really not a yard. They're all parking in the yard, so to speak. That's what they have to afford. Okay. It's not with the best views, but the views of the waterfalls and the views of the ocean, those are your multi-million dollars. And those are either owned by rich Asians or Europeans or Canadians or Americans that were not born there.
I think, Mark Zuckerberg owns some kind of crazy amount of Hawaiian real estate.
Well, the guy that started AOL owns the best part of Kauai that's still yet to be developed. Wow. And that just gives you an idea of the uber wealthy and what they're able to obtain. So there's your resentment that comes from the native Hawaiians. Okay.
Yeah.
And it's understandable, but who did they end up buying that land from?
Who did they buy it from?
Yeah, they had to have bought it from a Hawaiian. So if they really wanted to keep it, they shouldn't have ever sold it if they wanted to keep it all Hawaiian.
Well, I mean, if you go back to like First Peoples and stuff, I mean, if you use that argument, but I think there was a lot of Indians killed.
Yeah, they just ruled here, not just north of me, here in Oklahoma, up north in Oklahoma. The vast portion of that land needs to go right back to the Indians because it violated treaties that the United States signed. They should have never sold it to private investors or whatever. So there's going to be some battles come there, but they're getting it back anyway, 1 nickel at a time at the casinos. So they're just, people are giving it up willingly. So
yeah, I think there's so much backroom dealing. You talk about particularly First Peoples around the casinos and the alcoholism and all the challenges. Because I think, and not to get this too deep into the weeds in terms of political discourse, but particularly when it comes to poor people in general, it's a twisting knife, right? So if it does, all right, we're going to give you this, but we're going to still take it on the back end anyways.
Right.
So there's never a reparations that is appropriate, right?
That's has versus have nots once again.
Yeah.
So you look at even like right now in Colorado, they made recreational marijuana legal. Okay. But prior to that, if you got the medical card for the medical marijuana for whatever reason, and you can get them fairly easily, you give up your right, believe it or not, to own a firearm. You willingly give up your Second Amendment right. A lot of people don't read that fine print. It's amazing they're willing to give up that right just so they can go partake. So there's always a catch. Okay. And so, but once again, you just mentioned the greatest example of if you're going to trust the government to take care of you, how has that worked out for the Native American Indians?
Yeah.
So I rest my case there. It's the opportunity. We're the land of opportunity. So getting back to that, as we in a micro, bringing it back to the people we're talking to, I would just reiterate: know why you believe what you believe, inspect what you expect to be happening. Okay, hold people capable. Master the art of appreciation. Have that.
Being thankful is huge. Yeah, absolutely.
And then being generous with your time and your talents for the right reason. Be smart, be honest, but don't be a victim. Because this day and age, if you're a victim, I'm almost saying you're a willing victim. There's help and protection for those really, really big threats. You just got to ask for it.
I think that's really important too, and we can go ahead and say that again. If you're feeling like you're being victimized, there is somebody out there to help you. It's not always easy to find a person, but there are some folks to help you. What is the best way for people to get in touch with you, Jerry?
Well, the WeStandForFreedom.com website was originally designed to be a capture page to be able to, so that people agree with those precepts, those fundamental freedoms, our responsibilities, rights, and duties. They can reach out to me and contact me there so we can have a conversation. But my email address, I don't know if you've shown it on your contact stuff, but it's jerryp.nwyc@gmail.com. And feel free to show my phone number. I'm willing to take a phone call from anybody.
Well, why don't you give it out? I hesitate to post phone numbers because I don't want folks to be spam. But if you want to give it out, I don't think that'll be captured in the stream.
No worries. Yeah, it's 512-269-1994.
Yep, and please get in touch with Jerry, especially if you're looking to sort of have this discourse on getting into politics and getting away. I encourage folks to reach out to their local politicians in particular. Yeah. Those are going to be the people most likely wanting to hear from you. And vote. Please get out.
Let me reiterate my most pleased constituents are those people that understand the phone app, and they say it literally takes them 5 to 10 minutes a week to be engaged and informed and to hold their elected officials accountable, not just at the national level, but the state and local levels as well. So it's all right there at your fingertips. So we make it easy, and we're leveraging technology to disrupt the status quo, and we're making a huge impact. We really are. You just don't always hear about it in the media, but that doesn't mean it's not taking place. So it's about aligning yourself. There's strength in numbers. You just want to do it the right way, and that's all I have to say on that.
All right, beautiful. Yeah, if you're getting involved, you're doing the right thing. Get out there and vote. Thank you very much for sharing with me and the folks here your time today, Jerry. I'm going to let you close it out. We'll get into the BizDev thing. Go ahead and say goodbye to everybody, and then I'll play us out.
Thank you once again, guys. I wish you much prosperity and peace and happiness, and those that you love near and dear, just give them a good hug and kiss, and don't be ashamed of that. Show your affection.
Thank you, everybody.
BizDev Live, weekdays at 11 Eastern Time. BizDev Live, weekdays at 11 Eastern Time. BizD with C, brought to you by Cameron T. BizD with C, brought to you by Cameron T. This is business development, not even selling it. This is intelligent. If you watch it, I promise you benefit. Leadership and motivation, empathy and inspiration. Leadership and motivation, empathy and inspiration. BizDev Live, weekdays at 11 Eastern Time. BizDev Live, weekdays at 11 Eastern Time. BizD with C, brought to you by Cameron T.